How's it going? Today is Thursday. We're taking a look at very exciting opportunities out there. We have taken a look at autonomous vehicles, cars in particular, and the way how Parliament is taking or taking a look at new laws and implementing those within British Highlands. I think that's the way how they define it. From there, we have taken a look at some of the interesting projects myself. It just happens to be where my company is based in Bristol, and this project has been operating in Bristol since 2015. I thought my as well cover that, as well as reach out to some of those organizations, perhaps for opportunity of working together. Perhaps in the future, you never know. And within this video, I'm going to be taking a look at UK's aviation and how it's shaping its own destiny as airport slots reform. Consolation is lunch, and let's try to understand a little bit better what that is. With the new reform, the airport slot allocation system can have a tailored approach that works best for business and passengers across the UK. Uh, so perhaps universities I have covered in my previous video, so I thought it would be a good transition, right? There's you know, airports and potentially how those airports can, from what I understand, right? Everyone's reading exactly the same thing, I think. From what I understand, those airports can potentially move. The project that I have covered, I think it's six-person airplane that could potentially move people from point A to point B, and how that process can look like. So perhaps the airports might be moved or shaped a little bit differently to accommodate those kind of services. Let's take a look at some of the bullet points within this article and try to understand what's happening. Haven't read this article. First one would be smoother gateways and cheaper prices could be on the horizon as government launches consultation on airport slot reforms. Okay, thanks to new powers following Brexit, the sector is now in a position to pursue reforms that works best for UK. I don't know about that, but since they're referring to, when we're saying horizon, they're referring to different projects. I can cover that. They're referring to what Europe wants to do and what UK wants to do, so it's kind of different, I guess. But as well as some of those reforms, right, might not be very flexible. Perhaps by how UK leaving Europe, there was a massive project out there. It's something that was called Horizon Europe, and they're referring back to this project for whatever reason, right? What by leaving, UK would have more control and perhaps do that faster. Okay, if UK can do it faster, great. Speed is very important. To be the first, I would put a price tag on that to be the first. If Europe was slowing things down, right? Well, I don't know what's happening, right? Since some of those projects, if they were in operation, have covered just a number of those. So there are other organizations within UK. I don't know nothing about those organizations, and some of those organizations are very popular. So instead of covering the very popular ones, I thought might as well cover the one in Bristol and everything what's happening, right? Next point would be passengers could benefit from a lower price tax for more efficient airport operations. Okay, good. But I guess that would be reshape the industry since a lot of airports, some of the places within UK are shutting down. So perhaps they could be reopened. Even that would be benefit more jobs, more opportunities, where those airports would be opening up with domestic flights. That's why I'm interested. Not perhaps discussing all the ins and outs, but more opportunities, more prosperity, more jobs, more opportunities. For the first time since 1990s, that was what 32 years ago or so. Just perhaps a little longer than that, 30, almost 4 years ago. Whoa. The UK aviation industry will have a say on its airport slot regime as Department of Transport launched the Airport Slot Allocation System Reform consultation today, 4th of December 2023, to boost the growth success of this sector. And just to be accurate, December, so beginning of this month, so very recently, right? Like parking spaces for plane slots are used to manage capacity at the busiest airport across the country. A slot gives permission for an airline to use the full range of airport infrastructure, from runways to terminals, to operate on a specific date and time. I don't know if I should say it. But why? Unless there's regulations. Otherwise, you can lift your airplane and land it anywhere where you want. But if they would say you only can land into existing infrastructure, right? And you would need to, as a company, you would gonna have to pay a fee for that infrastructure, right? I would rather, if I can, land this airplane in my backyard, so I don't need to pay a fee. So this is what's really happening. They would charge people or businesses, and businesses gonna have to ask people to pay some of the fee, right? So this is what they're actually talking about. Following its departure from the EU, UK aviation is no longer shackled by. Okay. I think I was trying to Google what. I mean, I know it, but I think yesterday was trying to Google what shackle means, right? And I think it came to currency in Israel, right? Shackles. And in a way, how myself I was trying to understand a lot of different meanings behind the words, right? By an outstanding slot regime and can now take a more tailored approach that works best for business and passengers across the country. The reform begin consult on the will include proposals for new ways of manage slots capabilities, and now they are allocated to airlines. Some of those airports are very busy, right? So since those airports are very busy, and overall, so space like above us, all that space. I'm trying to understand this kind of industry a little bit better. Everything's very highly regulated, right? And this kind of space over our heads, over our houses, and everything's very highly regulated, right? And perhaps starting, if it's possible, with existing infrastructure, and perhaps progressing from there into different plans, and how all those things can come into effect. But myself, I'm still new. I'm still learning a lot of things when it comes to all the regulations within industry, including civil aviation authority. It is helping me a lot to understand how UK operates its aerospace. This includes limiting slot leasing to instead of large airplane monopolizing slots. I don't know about any of that. The way how I would structure this is the angle that they have taken. The angle that I would take it. Why would many people would need those airports in the first place and use that existing infrastructure? That's the angle that I would take. And they're saying about the large planes. Perhaps those large planes can go obsolete because it's already been the way how they put it, monopolized. All the industry has already been monopolized. For those people who are following history and have read one or two books about the industry, what's happening within UK, there's a lot to say when it comes to monopolizing. Since monopolizing for entry or small companies to entry, and to take a look at monopolizing when we take a look at UK's industry and aerospace, it's very hard to do. So monopolizing, and then we're talking about existing infrastructure which already has monopolized everything, and instead of landing in your backyard. So there's a lot of things to say there. They can be allocated to other competitors if not used after a set period, allowing for newer or similar airlines with possible cheaper prices to receive favorable slots and make the process more dynamic. The reform also aims to give more powers to respond to a crisis, making the industry more resilient and efficient in time of uncertainty. I don't know. I don't know. So if there's something to celebrate, perhaps if UK would have more rights when it comes to some of this legals, right, and when it comes to perhaps being more uh, faster when compared to perhaps Europe, if they compare themselves to Europe, I don't know. Can they compare themselves to US? That's a better question. To Europe, because I think US is way ahead. The current system, based on EU regulations, requires a slot allocation process to be considered across Europe. But while the sector has developed and growth in the last 20 years, the rules of the slot system have remained unchanged. Now, with our new reforms, we can ensure that the system takes the case-specific needs into account. These pivotal reforms designed the balance into inserts both airlines and airports have the potential to usher in higher market competitions, enable more innovation, and encourage lower prices. For example, increasing opportunities for the airlines to obtain slots in the UK is business airports will encourage greater competitions and drive productivity between airlines. I don't know, but myself, the way how I'm looking at it, that would be still we're tackling the same old issues, right? For people who don't know, there would be in New York and having permit to drive a taxi in New York, right? So to drive a taxi in New York, there would be they had a very old system, right? And other companies came in without promoting any projects, right? Came in and completely flipped that industry with lowering entry barrier of starting becoming a taxi driver within places like New York, right? But this is when I'm reading this article, it's the only thing that I can see. That some of those industries are still thinking of the way how the taxi would work. Taxi, right? Instead of having like a phone, ordering a plane or plane lands wherever you want, picks you up and goes to wherever you want. That's the way how I'm looking at it. This is what should be, but all those implementations, regulations, and all still need of using existing infrastructure and of that fee attached to that existing system, because they would say that we will hold you a parking space, right, to land your plane. The parking space can be, I don't know, I just purchased fields, right? In those fields, right? If it's safe to do so, you can land in those fields. Here you go. I'll charge money for that. That's the way how I'm looking at this example, as well as I thought might as well share that New York tax example and the way how what kind of permission you would need to receive to drive a taxi in New York. With this could come more affordable flights and seamless journeys as airlines strives to offer better deals and prices than their competitors, benefiting millions of passengers who can travel throughout the UK airports. So they still what they actually are doing. There would should be a requirement to use the existing infrastructure, right, and pay a fee instead of using, I don't know, somewhere in the fields. Anyone can land in the fields and they don't need to pay for parking. Prices, some of those airports within a UK, it's all overpriced, or to park a car over there. But there's existing infrastructure, right? This is what they're actually looking to achieve. The way how they structure this article is, I don't know, that's my personal view. Airports will also see their slots being used more effectively as airlines will be required to use them. Instead of store or lease them, increasing a number of flights and making journeys smoother. Well, would you know what would make it more smoother? Not using it entirely. That would make it better. Yeah, yourself, if you're interested in learning more, I have published a book, Inflow. Within this book, I'm taking a look at how to build routines and where to start. Which I personally believe would be very important, particularly if you want to things to do or be different, right? Depending where you are right now in your life, perhaps you would like to improve some of those areas, and you have a idea and you don't know how to develop that idea. I would highly recommend start with an idea or a feeling or idea or the desire, and from there begin into you push and following through with doing that for 90 days. Usually it's recommended for 70 days, but just to stay on the safe side, that's how the structure is journal. So you would stick with the routine and following it for 90 days. Every page is 24-hour window, and how you or should optimize those 24 hours. I have highlighted a number of areas that would be important. You can find it in QR code in the corner company's website below. Throughout collaboration between government and industry partners, these reforms will ensure airport capacity is used to its fullest to reduce delays and optimize flight schedules, while also delivering the department's flight path to the future vision for modern and innovative aviation sector. I personally believe it should be more flexible. I don't know how. I don't want to put anyone in danger or risk. I don't know if it's safe, right? So for as long as it could be done safely, I don't know about using existing infrastructure because for many businesses it can be very, very expensive. If they would be required, business is going to be required to use the existing infrastructure, then it's going to be very expensive. And now we're trying to package a deal how it should be a little bit cheaper, I guess, but optimizing their own airports and existing infrastructure. So I personally believe that coming from a business perspective, it's going to be very expensive. You're going to need to use it. If there's going to be a requirement to use the existing infrastructure, there's going to be a lot of handshaking happening in the background, I guess. But it's going to be required to do so, right? Hopefully not. And people can take off and land wherever they want, where they think it's safe to do so. In particular, if we're taking a look at some of those projects and how those planes would be built, right? They don't need to runways. So some of those planes can be built like rockets, right? They can take off and vertically, right? So they don't need airports. They can take off and land anywhere. So they don't need to use or pay any sometimes, if not always, something they have highlighted monopolized prices, right? Which will be passed down to consumers and consumers. So I don't know who will benefit from that. This consortium forms part of the government's wider set of pro-competition. Pro-competition. I don't know. It's a waste of everyone's time. It's a waste of time. Measures to boost the economy. Pro-competition. I don't know. Do not use existing infrastructure. That's pro-competition. Attract investments and create dynamic industries that works best for UK's interest. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next one.